Hey, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. Let me start with an uncomfortable question. If you disappeared, if you disappeared for 2 weeks, would your team slow down or would they speed up? Now, that's an interesting question because if decisions stall when you're not there, that's not a team capability issue. That's actually a leadership design issue. It's actually a leadership design issue. You see, there are many high performing leaders. The very behaviors that made you successful, the very things that you do that made you successful, that got you to where you are now, that got you to where you are now, they may now be slowing everyone else down. They may be slowing everyone else down. Some of the biggest bottlenecks are created by the most capable leaders. Leaders who are excellent at solving problems. Leaders who are excellent at stepping in. Leaders who are excellent at making sure that things are right. And when you're doing that, what the team, what the system, what the organization learns is that nothing moves unless it goes through that person. So join us today because we're going to explore that hard leadership question. Are you leading the system, or has the system quietly reorganized itself around you? We've got 5 key points to have a look at. I've got 2 practical tools that you can use straight away. And I've also got a couple of reflection questions for you. So, what's the first key point? Well, bottlenecks are built through reinforcement, not intention. Now, it's most likely that you don't step out purposefully with intention to create a bottleneck. However, every time you step in, every time you solve the issue, the team is learning dependency. Every single time an approval or a decision is centralized around you, the decision-making muscle of your team diminishes. Atrophy. It just diminishes. They're not using it, so they lose it. Yeah? The quicker that a leader solves the problem, the less independent the thinking is, the less independent the problem solving is. So what you're actually doing is disempowering them. And every time you rescue people, you own the issue, what you're doing is you're reinforcing to the team, everything's got to come through me. I've got all the answers. Don't rely on each other, just come back to me. And what that means is that you become the bottleneck. Are you doing that intentionally? Probably not. But you are reinforcing all the time. Every time you rescue, every time you own the issue, what you're doing is reinforcing and reinforcing. The second point is this: centralized control feels productive. So from your perspective as a leader, that centralized control can often feel really, really productive. But what I want to show you here really quickly is that it's actually a capacity trap. In the short term, the control gives you a lot of clarity. Hey, I'm awesome. I know exactly what's going on here. However, it also slows down the execution long term. In the short term, it reduces short-term risk. Yeah, the risk isn't there anymore. In the short term, it increases this perception that you have as a leader that things are really efficient. But in the longer term, there's slowed execution. People take longer to get things done. Their initiative is reduced. They're not excited about demonstrating that they can think for themselves because you take over. And there's a hesitation that they have. And the real hard thing here is that they actually learn this from you. They learn it from you because the control sets this kind of capacity ceiling. They can only go so far and then no more. No more. And what it actually does is it disempowers your team individually and as a whole team. Okay? Great to see you here, Leonie. Welcome. So the third point is this. Third point, indispensability. I have to look at that word because it's hard for me to say. Indispensability feels good. It feels good to you as a leader. However, it's a real trap. You know, maybe you were promoted because you were really good at getting things done. You were reliable, you were a doer, you got stuff done. Now, the challenge here, if you're one of those people, is that at this higher level, you're not needed as much. The challenge is that you still want to do things that make you feel like you're important, make you feel like you've got the status. And maybe what you're concerned about is that letting go of some of that control actually makes you feel as though you've lost some of the value that you bring to the organization, because you could see it there when you were doing things. You could tick those off. You'd be going, yeah, I've done that. But now it's a little bit different. And what needs to happen from your perspective is that you look to change your identity as a leader. It's you're no longer the person that ensures that everything's right. Got to change that. And this is a bit scary to change that identity because it's like redefining your worth all over again. And just that reminder that we've had through a lot of leadershipizations, and that is one of the cores of our leadership intelligence toolbox. What got you here won't get you there. So this change of identity is about shifting from, hey, I'm an essential person because I'm the doer. I can get out there and execute the things that you need done. You're actually shifting from essential to expansion. This is expansion and growth for you. This is expansion and growth for your team. This is all about you helping your team build their capability while you lean into the other higher level jobs that you need to be doing. It's a tough ask for a lot of leaders. It's a really tough ask. So, number 4. This is a whole new term. I love this number 4. Latency in decision making exposes system gaps, especially bottlenecks. Now, the question for you to ask yourself here, this is all about decision latency. And I'll talk a bit more about what decision latency is in a minute, but suffice to say, it's the difference between knowing that the decision needs to be made and actually making it so that it can be implemented. So, first thing to be thinking about here is this. In terms of decisions, how many decisions are escalated to you unnecessarily? Is it a lot? Is it just a few? Second question to ask is, how often do people wait for you? They wait for your decision. They wait for your input. They wait to talk to you. They wait for you to review something or run your eye over something. How often do people wait for you instead of acting? Remember my question at the beginning about if you're not there for 2 weeks, what happens? Do they speed up or do they slow down? The third question is, how many approvals require your name, and potentially they shouldn't, or if that's too strong a word for you, potentially they don't have to. Yeah? Decision latency, what is it? Well, it's the time delay between when the situation arises and when the decision is made and acted upon. So as I said before, it's that time lapse between knowing and doing. When it's really high, when there's a big gap there, that comes from slow, fragmented decision-making processes. Maybe there's some bottlenecks. And if it's really high because there is a large gap between knowing and doing, you can be sure that it's a major hidden cause of organizational failure. And it's something that can be addressed. And if you as a leader have the courage to address it from your side, that's going to make it much easier for you to live with. What causes decision latency? Things like unclear accountability, fragmented data, manual reporting, excessive or slow meetings where no decisions are made. And I'm sure you've been to meetings where you think, is someone going to actually put the line in the sand and take ownership of the things that need to be done? Some meetings, some organizations, some businesses are all about meetings to talk about the next meeting, meetings to discuss without making those decisions. Decision latency causes operational inefficiencies. Your employees are more likely to burn out. And there would always be, because of that gap, financial and safety risks associated with that. What can you do to reduce that decision latency? It's about streamlining that workflow, clearer ownership, so that you can get rid of those bottlenecks, that you look at those ownership boundaries that we talked about last week, and that you make sure that one of those boundaries is handing over the decision authority, so that people who are working on the task can make a certain level of decisions associated with that, and they're not stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Because what we also learned last week is that your team adapts to your leadership style. So if your leadership style is stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, their productivity is pretty soon going to reflect that. So what are we looking for here? Our goal is for faster, more informed, more effective responses, more effective decisions made by you. So what's the first step that you need to do here then? This is point number 5. What you need to do is to distribute the authority and the decision making, not just the tasks. We talked a lot about this last week, and we've really been drilling down. Your team doesn't trust you. You don't trust your team. Actually, are you really handing over psychological ownership? And now what we're looking at is the behavior of the leader in terms of being the bottleneck. And the reason I'm drilling down into these is because they're very common issues for new leaders to be having. They're also really common issues for leaders who've been around a little while to be having, particularly if there's been a lot of change around them, and the way that they manage that is by holding on with control. So in order for you to distribute the authority and the decision making and not just the tasks, you need to firstly understand that authority is not the same as responsibility. You're giving a person authority, you're tasking them with making the decisions, and that's quite different from giving them the responsibility of carrying out the tasks. And teams actually need those decision rights clearly defined. We talked about this with the ownership boundaries that we covered last week. So it's about clearly articulating that. What needs escalation, what doesn't, where autonomy begins, where it ends. Because without those boundaries, without clear outcomes, without clear decision parameters, without your check-ins already set, this is when we're going to do them, without those intervention triggers clearly identified, those are the ownership boundaries that we talked about last week. When they're not clearly defined, what we know is that ownership steps in. So to scale, to grow, you're going to need to have distributed that confidence. They're all going to want to feel that confidence, that they can make the decisions, that they do have the authority to do things, and it's not just about you tasking them. Okay? Let's have a look now at two. I keep getting my fingers wrong today. Let's have a look now at two leadership intelligence tools that you can implement straight away to get things happening. Right? The first one of these is what I call the 30% decision release audit. Very fancy name. It's really a question. That's all it is. It's one question and one short task. What I want you to do is to identify 3 decisions that currently require your approval. 3 decisions that currently require your approval. And then what I want you to do is to pick one of the 3. Pick one of them, whichever one it is that you want, and remove yourself from that. Redefine the decision or the ownership boundary really clearly and hand it on to someone else. And then what I want you to do is to observe. Does the performance go down or does the ownership go up? And if you've done a great job of redefining those ownership boundaries, outcomes, decision parameters, check-ins, intervention triggers, look at last week's leadershipization if you need more detail on those. If you've done a great job of redefining those and sharing them with whoever you've given the authority to, ownership should be going up. Less for you to do. You scale by stepping back quite deliberately. Yeah? The second tool today, I call this the what would you do shift. Now, when you have all these tools, I know you've got to come up with names for them because they're all kind of slight variations of a similar theme, but they have a specific role to do with exactly what we've been talking about today. So this is a question for you to ask your team when they come to you, recognizing that as a result of the awareness that we've raised today, you're wanting to change. You're wanting to stop being the bottleneck. You're wanting to hand more ownership over. So the ideal question for you to ask someone in your team would be this one. You might want to write it down. What would you do if I wasn't available? What would you do if I wasn't available? Now, the really awesome thing here is that it builds that decision muscle that we talked about before. Like every time you make a decision for them, their muscle is declining. So it builds that decision muscle. It also starts to rewire that dependency pattern. We don't want to continue to build that dependency. And it develops thinkers, which means that your leadership at this higher level becomes all about building the capacity of the individuals in your team. And the greater their capacity is, the less need there is for you to be the bottleneck. You can get on with doing the other things that you're here to be doing in the organisation. Okay, let's have a look now. We've got 2 reflection questions. The first one is this. Before I ask you that question, these reflection questions are for you to ask yourself and to be thinking, where is this hitting home? What am I learning about myself, and how can I grow as a leader as a result of this reflection? Because what we know is that self-awareness is where all of this starts. That's at the very core of your leadership intelligence. So the first one, where have I unintentionally made myself the center of every critical decision? Where have I unintentionally made myself the center of every critical decision? Now, some of you may have intentionally made yourself the center of every critical decision. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here. Be honest, because then you can start to apply that 30% decision audit that I gave you as the first tool a little earlier. So that's the first one. The second one is this, and this follows on again from that same tool. If I removed myself from 30% of all operational approvals, what fear services first for me? Is it the fear of not being relevant? Is it the fear of not being in control? Is it the fear of getting it wrong? Is it the fear of being blamed? Once you've identified that, once you've called it, you're going to be then in a position to change it. But if you're not facing up to it, then you're not going to change it, are you? So they're my 2 reflection questions for you. Good luck with those. Let us know how you go, because we're always interested in that feedback that we might get from people that tells us, yeah, that was a great question. It really made a difference for me. So key takeaways today. Bottlenecks are behavioural patterns, and you can reinforce those all the time. The great thing is that they're not personality flaws. They're not personality flaws. It feels good. It feels good, this bottlenecking, this control. But actually it holds other people back. And that's not going to help you in the long run. And real growth means that you step up and away so that you can redesign the structure to improve that decision latency. You want those decisions going through really smoothly in your team. Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you, Leonie, for spending some time with us today. If you've got questions or comments, pop them on the platform that you're watching this on. If you're watching this as a replay, #replay would be fabulous. Look, leadership bottlenecks really come from capability. They really come from capability. They come from patterns that we've stopped noticing. So if today's conversation made you recognize somewhere, a place where you might be holding more than you think you need to, or more than you need to, I love that for you, because that's useful awareness. Because our leadership actually evolves when we start seeing our own patterns more clearly. That's when we can work on the growth. That self-awareness enables us to work on changing our identity. So if you'd like a conversation about what evolution might look like for you and for your team, there's a link that you can book a 30-minute conversation with me, and I'd love to explore that with you. Together, we can explore it. So next week, we're going to be having a deeper look at the various layers, the things that contribute to this need to have control all the time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye now.